Hey, welcome to the Simple Nutrition Podcast, a show that helps you learn practical and actual nutrition tips from an expert. I am your host, Leonila Campos, a registered dietitian with over 8 years of experience in the nutrition field. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Simple Nutrition Insights Podcast. I am your host, Leonila Campos, registered dietitian. And today we have an exciting guest joining us, Lauren O'Connor, who is a private practice dietitian, a 5-time cookbook author, and a freelance writer with a passion for gut health, fitness, and culinary nutrition. She also a yoga teacher and an active member of her community, sharing her expertise through her website, NutriSavvyHealth.com, and contributing to numerous health and wellness publications. February's National Lactose Intolerance Month serves as the perfect time to embrace smarter, tastier choices. So we are thrilled to have Lauren here to share her expertise. Lauren, welcome so much to the show.
Thank you so much, Leo. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, amazing. So, Lauren, your background is so inspiring. Can you tell us a little bit more about your journey and what led you to become a dietitian?
Well, let's see. I had been in my undergrad. I was exploring myself, trying to figure out what to do, searching, and just couldn't really find anything that I liked to do, but ended up in a dead-end job, production art that wasn't really going anywhere. But what I realized was throughout the 5 years that I had been working since I had graduated, I just got more and more into nutrition. How can I make myself healthier? How can I, be the best or as fit as I can be? And so exploring various types of diets, some of which were a little more extreme than others. And I realized I think this is just a time for me to pursue something that has become more than just a hobby. I am actually going to retreats. I am signing up for, courses, and might as well get it professional, credentialed, go into something that has such interest. But that's not the end of the story. I ended up becoming a registered dietitian. I worked for a year in clinical, got pregnant, had 2 young girls. Me and my husband were thrilled to have twins. And so at that time, I started focusing on family nutrition, doing a little blogging here, doing recipe development for certain companies, creating menu planning, because I was really a busy stay-at-home mom. That evolved into my private practice in 2012, focusing on family nutrition. But it wasn't until a health scare of my own in 2017 that I changed my focus to gut health and GERD.
It's sometimes life, right, takes us into different paths, and we end up in a path that we didn't think about, right? And
Exactly.
all for the benefit, hopefully.
Yeah.
So you have so many hats, right? You're a dietitian, an author, a writer, a yoga teacher. How do you balance all those things?
It's a balance. I don't know that I balance them all super well, but I do have structure to my days. I teach yoga 3 times a week. The writing assignments, they come, I accept them. I fit them into the schedule as they fit because, as you know, with writing, there's deadlines. You might have 3 days or a week to do something. So if I need to write at night, I'll write at night. So that's what I love. The writing is so very flexible. My yoga schedule is set, and seeing clients, I see clients as I schedule them. So it's my own business. I get to decide how many and who I'm going to see. And so I know, like you, like a dietitian, you're very busy. You do a podcast, you see your clients, so it's all just about seizing opportunity, moving through with what you normally do, which has become a part of your lifestyle, your business and your lifestyle, and managing. My kids are now 16. They're in high school. They're pretty independent now. So things are a little different than they were when they were very young.
Right. Yeah. It's a different kind of way to organize things, right? And
yes,
like you said, you're able to schedule things based on your availability. So that's awesome.
Exactly. And that's what I love about having my own business. I do not have to adhere to somebody else's schedule. I have deadlines. I have projects, and things you have to manage. But it is nice to be able to work from home, do more or less telehealth, do my writing, teach my yoga at the studio. So it's super fun. Um,
Awesome. So in the intro, right, I mentioned that you have written 5 cookbooks. What sparked your love for culinary nutrition?
just always enjoyed cooking. I didn't get an opportunity to cook much as a child. My mom was more or less a TV dinner mom. She didn't cook. But when I graduated college, a friend of mine and myself decided we are going to learn how to cook. And we are going to go to farmers market every weekend. We're going to get a different cookbook and a recipe, whether it's a Martha Stewart or whoever. And we're going to do like all these meals. We're going to do a dinner. We're going to have the entree, the salad. We're going to create a dessert. We would stay up for hours preparing and following these things and using this fresh food and probably working far too hard than we needed to. But I think it was something that gave me a good skill set. I learned a lot on the way, a lot of trial and error, a lot of following recipes. And then just, when blogging came up, I mean, that opportunity to create new recipes often to keep your blog up, right? So I think that's part of it too, the culture. A lot of people were blogging recipes, and it just certainly fits within the scope of when you are seeing patients or trying to educate people on how to eat healthier. It's one thing to say, oh, you should include this many vegetables and this many fruits. It's another thing to say, here's how you can create a well-rounded dish and how you can get enough fruit or vegetables throughout your day. Here's some great snack options. Here's a great dinner. So I think people find that a little more engaging than just giving them a list of here's what you should eat and how much you should eat. It's part of, I think, human, our culture, a love of food, a desire to eat together, a desire to eat things that are good for, well, hopefully eat things that are good for you that are going to taste good.
Right. And I think, just your background, right? Growing up, maybe not knowing how to cook, but still having that desire to, I want to learn how to cook and I want to develop these, skills that I can use for the rest of my life. And I think that is, awesome. And I'm sure, with your books, right? Will you say that they are like user friendly and like they're easy to follow and like the recipes are simple?
Yeah, I mean, for the most part, yeah. I mean, that's what it, kind of has to be. I have in the past picked up cookbooks that were very complicated, but the end result looks so amazing. And then I found myself just pulling my hair out because I didn't thoroughly read it and understand I was supposed to do step A before step B. It just wasn't clear. And so I think that there is a need for people to have something that is, A, an example for them to do, and B, a really clear guide as to how to do something so they can say, hey, what I thought I couldn't cook and I made this delicious recipe, or I made something with 4 simple ingredients and look, that was good. I can do this. So I think empowering people to be able to use someone else's resource, but to be able to, cook for themselves, because I think anybody can be a good cook. It's about understanding, following directions, and eventually building a skill set like you do with anything.
Right. Yeah, I love that. And I think it's important, even if you're older now if that's something that you want, right, being able to learn those skills specifically for, our younger population, right, being able to have those skills. And it's something that you're going to use for the rest of your life. So having, these cookbooks are such a great resource as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
Awesome. So February, as I mentioned, right, February is National Lactose Intolerance Month. And many people are looking for ways to enjoy food without discomfort. What are some easy swaps or additions for listeners who want to reduce or eliminate lactose in their diets?
Okay. Well, first, I want to explain that you don't necessarily need to entirely eliminate dairy, right? Most people with lactose intolerant can, in fact, tolerate 10 grams of lactose per day. It's not a huge amount, but considering, let's say, a glass of milk is 12 grams of lactose. If you have less than a glass of milk and spread throughout your day, say a splash in your coffee, maybe a splash or 2 in your oatmeal or cream of wheat, that could certainly be okay. So that is an option. You can still use some dairy products. There are lactose-free products available that do contain dairy, but are lactose-free. And so one is Lactaid, which is great because it is the real dairy, it is the milk, but they provide the enzyme needed to break down the lactose, which is a milk sugar, and make it digestible. So those who are lactose intolerant can enjoy that milk or ice cream. Other products like Challenge Butter, it's delicious. It's spreadable. It's lactose free. It's the only spreadable lactose free butter. And it's just something I feel like the whole family can enjoy because it does have that buttery taste. It does contain some dairy. Okay. So that said, I would also say that you can look toward your vegan products, anything that's dairy free. Very easy. There's a lot of plant-based milks available out there. So we've got soy milk, almond milk, coconut milk, macadamia and peanut milk, hemp milk. I mean, I can go on, and it's almost crazy to see these widely available options, even in stores like Kroger, Ralph's, Vons. Not just your health food stores like Erewhon or Lason's. So those products are widely available. But what I would say is that it's not necessarily direct swaps. Our dairy, our milk is high in protein and calcium, right? It's fortified with vitamin D. So if you're swapping for a plant milk, say you love almond milk, that's going to be very low in protein, right? So you might want to swap for a soy milk instead. You want to make sure that your plant milks are going to be fortified with calcium and vitamin D so you don't miss out on those nutrients. If you do enjoy a vegan option, say, that doesn't have a lot of certain nutrients like calcium, then you can fulfill the calcium in your diet through adding in more leafy greens, getting in some more broccoli. Almonds are a source of calcium. Salmon, fish like salmon. If you get canned salmon with the bones, the edible bones, it's also going to provide a source of vitamin D, which is really hard to find in foods. Vitamin D is much, don't you think? It's much harder to find that vitamin D. That's why a lot of foods like certain cereals and like orange juices even are fortified with vitamin D, as well as like maybe calcium. So yeah, those are just some ideas. There's so many vegan dairy-free items on the market. And then, of course, there's like that Challenge Butter that's lactose-free and tasty and spreadable and still has that element of dairy that is quite appealing.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing those thoughts, right, and those alternatives too, and for speaking on the importance of making sure that they're fortified, right, or that if we're not getting enough protein from these other sources, to choose, the soy milk, because you are absolutely right. Vitamin D is so hard to get, and especially if you're already not getting it from anywhere, right? There could be a deficiency there. But also calcium, right? And more so for our younger population, right? I do see that a lot with like teenagers or younger kids that are not drinking milk, right? Or not adding fortified calcium and vitamin D foods. And so if we're not getting them, right, there could be a deficiency there. So I think finding these alternatives is really helpful.
Exactly. And that's where my concern is like with elimination diets. And even with, because my focus is on gut health and GERD, my patients will have to go on a temporary elimination diet. Yes, it is temporary. And the reason it is temporary is because it's hard to get all the nutrients you need when you're cutting out all these certain foods that could possibly be causing you issue. And so I think the key thing that I really want to share about Lactose Intolerance Month is that you don't necessarily have to cut out that dairy, that particular type of food from your diet. If you choose not to, that's another thing. If you really enjoy the plant-based alternatives and you really don't need the dairy, and you can certainly get your calcium from a variety of sources in your diet, and you can certainly get the fortification of the vitamin D. So it's, for me, I like to express that eating should be from a wide variety of foods and not cutting out particular foods or types of foods unless it's absolutely necessary. Lactose intolerance is not a milk allergy. It's something that you can control, and it's something that you can definitely, manage, by consuming less of the lactose or breaking it up into smaller portions, amounts, getting less lactose throughout the day. So like I said, breaking that milk into like little splash here, and then a little later, a little splash there, or maybe enjoying some cheese. Cheese is generally hard cheeses are generally lower in lactose because the liquid whey portion is filtered out, strained out. And that's what contains most of the lactose in the dairy product is that liquid whey. So you can opt for things that are going to be low in lactose. You can opt for things that are lactose free. And you can, stated, claimed, and shown to be lactose free, right? Because they have such insignificant amount that's not likely to affect you. Or you can choose to go vegan, choose vegan products or yogurts. Yogurts, oh my gosh, yogurts are great, right? Because they have all those beneficial probiotics, which the body break down and digest and reduce incidence of gas and bloating. Furthermore, if you get a highly strained yogurt like Greek yogurt or like the yogurt style, the skyr, right? Much of that whey is going to be strained away. That's what contains much of the lactose. So it's going to be much lower in lactose. So these are things that I just want to emphasize that it's not black and white, like, wow, no dairy products, no lactose altogether. It's finding a balance and finding the amount that, that's tolerable for you. Everyone's different. Some people are so sensitive, and I get it, that even the smallest amount might affect them. And the same thing with people who have incidents like with acid reflux, GERD, gastroesophageal reflux disease. It's like, yeah, some people absolutely forever may have to eliminate maybe certain things or really monitor the amounts of, say, something like garlic or tomato. And some people find that they're able to eventually add those back into their diets and have a little bit more, not too much, but a little bit more moderate amounts. So again, everyone's different, but in general, lactose intolerance does not mean you need to eliminate dairy altogether.
Right. Yeah, thank you so much. And I love that how you made it so personalized, right, and unique to each individual person, because that's essentially how it is, right? It doesn't just like one recommendation is not for every single person. I think really understanding, what are the issues, right, or what are the symptoms, or what the individual person is struggling with, and then working with them, right, in figuring out a well-balanced plan that is going to benefit them, right, and make sure that they're not having potential deficiencies and such. And I love that you also provided so many ways to still add those lactose, well, not so much lactose containing, right? But if they still want to have dairy, right, they can still have it, but maybe separate it or choose more of, like the Greek style yogurt that provides so many benefits, right? Or the Greek yogurt. So it's awesome for the listeners to understand that, right? That you have options, right? It's not yet, if someone says, oh, you're lactose intolerant, eliminate it all completely, right? But not replace it with anything else, because now we can get in trouble, right?
Right. You don't want to just like swap it out and go, oh, well, this milk is creamy. It's plant-based. I'll just swap that. You're going to be missing out on certain nutrients that, milk is strong in, right? Like I mentioned, the calcium, the vitamin D, the fortification of the vitamin D. And I think it's great when they can fortify products or products still have available dairy in them, but not too much, where they can still have that available calcium and vitamin D. Challenge Butter does have calcium and vitamin D. It's not like you're going to be eating a whole stick or getting a whole lot of it, but remember that our nutrients, we can get a little here, a little there, and eventually those good things can add up. We don't always have to punch in a whole ton of like that all at once. So just like knowing that lactose can build up and even a little bit here and a little bit there can eventually add up if you don't watch it. The same thing is to remember that you can get a little protein here, a little protein there, and through a wide plant rich diet, you can still get a good supply of protein.
Yeah, awesome.
So it works both ways, right? The adding up works both ways.
Right, exactly. Amazing. So for those that who are new to lactose-free eating, what advice will you give them to make the transition easier or enjoyable?
Yeah, like I said, I think like one thing is to be able to use a little bit of what they love here and there, right? So just breaking it down into smaller amounts throughout the day, managing that amount. I think it's really fun to explore the variety of plant-based options. I mean, we've got Kite Hill ricotta cheese. I mean, that spreadable, meltable, ooey gooey shredded cheese, right? We have chive and onion cream cheese.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think it's fun to be able to explore the possibilities out there, and also remember that you can get creamy, rich flavor using things like avocado, making cashew cream. Okay, so cashew cream is certainly an option that you can make yourself. I'm sure that you can buy it. There are various cashew based ice creams that are so rich and flavorful. I think it's like exploring the culinary possibilities, A. B, knowing that you can still have a little bit of those dairy products here and there, learning which items are more likely to have more lactose than others, knowing that milk is going to have more lactose than cheese, right? That yogurt, especially Greek strain yogurt, is going to have less lactose, and the fact that it has its probiotics. Yeah. So I just think that just exploring possibilities, having the alternatives that are there. If milk is certainly something you want to continue to use and not have to worry about adding it up, there's Lactaid. So you've got that possibility that you can use that. They also have ice creams. So I think when possible, swapping out for something very comparable, right? And most of the time we can, usually for the flavor and the texture. When swapping out, just being mindful that if something doesn't contain a lot of protein, get your protein, add it into your diet elsewhere. Some protein powders, there's vegan protein powders, even protein powders that have whey isolate. They're not necessarily going to be super high in lactose. And so again, comes down to the idea of like, okay, let's just simplify it, not worry about so much about counting, maybe lean a little bit more toward some vegan sources until we get a better understanding and we can really suss it through and go like, if you want to, and go, yeah, I'm going to have the real deals, but I'm going to limit it because there's just so much alternatives available these days that it's almost ridiculous.
Right. You had so many options nowadays, right? When we look at even, as I think about our plant-based options before the pandemic to after the pandemic, right? It's almost like it grew exponentially. So there's so many options now for plant-based products that that were not available before the pandemic. And so I think it's great that there's been a higher demand, which helps, right, industries to be able to develop more like user-friendly products that taste good, right? And that
there's a competition to make things taste better. Some things that came out and weren't necessarily great tasting yogurts, like coconut yogurts, maybe that a particular coconut yogurt wasn't that great, or almond yogurt. And these days, they're expanding the well-roundedness and the creaminess and the textures and making things like a little bit closer to, I feel like, what was highly desirable, almost to the point like, this is really good and I'm not even feeling like I'm swapping something out. This actually tastes like something I just want to use anyway. It's a creamy, delicious spread.
Right, exactly, without having the symptoms, right? And so I want to talk a little bit about how more so like if someone is having maybe some of these symptoms of lactose intolerance, right, that if they continue, because sometimes I get clients that say, I know that I cannot have milk, but I still have milk anyway, or cheese or ice cream, and I know I am going to pay for it later, right? How damaging can that be for like their gut health if they continue to do that, as opposed to what you're suggesting, right? Like breaking it down and like just having a smaller amount so you don't have those symptoms.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, anything that impacts like with bloating and gas it's impacting your digestion, your ability. You're not going to be eating as well if you're feeling constantly bloated. You probably might be losing weight, whether or not you're losing weight. Some people, they don't feel well and they continue to eat and they gain weight. Okay. So it impacts how you feel about eating, how you're going to be eating, because the way that you're feeling. I feel like if you're having these symptoms and there's this distension and there's this excess gases can also, causing that distension, press up on the lower esophageal sphincter. And so, which in the case of GERD, even though lactose intolerance does not cause GERD, the incidence of that bloating can affect and cause the reflux, which can affect your health, right? Because then in that case, you've got excess acid coming up and up the esophagus, sometimes up through the throat. So this causes health scare, right? This irritates the passages, causes some irritation, makes it difficult to, say, if you have silent reflux, swallow. So there are always health implications when you're having digestive discomforts, whether it's diarrhea or just gas or pain. And that certainly affects your health. So I think it's very important to be mindful. So on one hand, not feeling a restrictive mindset, but on the other hand, not like, well, I know I'm not supposed to be having it. I'm going to get the consequence later, but I'm going to have it anyway. You have to educate your patients to find a middle ground and educate them that, hey, there's other ways to enjoy this type of food that you like, or get that same creaminess that you do get from, say, that cream that you generally use in whatever it is. Or if you're making a smoothie, I can use avocado to make it creamy, right? Or I can use cashews. So I think it's a lot about education and encouragement and showing people that there's other delightful ways to enjoy food.
Right. Yeah, I love that. There's not like you don't have it at all, right? And you're miserable versus like you have it and you're miserable anyway. There's a middle ground and a way to incorporate these things, right? In a way that are going to help you, and your gut health is going to be safe as well.
Right. Well, it's so super important, right? It's super important to be able to digest well. If you don't digest things well, then, you're not absorbing the nutrients properly either. So that's true.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. All right, Ms. Lauren. If you could share maybe 3 actionable tips for our listeners to improve their gut health today, what would they be?
Oh my gosh, 3? Just 3? Wow. Well, I could go the whole dodge of say, eat plenty of fruits and vegetables. Just, I think it's more like exploring the wide variety of fruits and vegetables that you can enjoy. I think that there's so much out there, and there's so many websites and recipes and blogs that show how well you can enjoy that wide diversity of vegetables. So I think that's key of importance. I think that not only the phytonutrients, but the plant fibers, these are so necessary for your gut health. I think another thing is focusing on not eliminating foods when possible, and making sure that you get plenty of protein. Protein is essential for like every element of your life, from like your cells and everything. Everything needs protein, whether it's your hair and your nails. Protein is necessary for many metabolic reactions. So ensuring that you do get enough protein as well. And, obviously fortification. I think I'm going on, and I'm just going to give you like all these tips, but I'm just going to say key things.
Absolutely.
Use the wonderful resources that we have and see the wide variety of delicious recipes that we have available. Lots of vegetables and fruits. And I think Mediterranean type, diets, when I say that, when I'm speaking to like Middle Eastern, there's a lot of flavors and foods. And I've been seeing lately a lot more Middle Eastern influence. I mean, I know we've had hummus available for so long, and we've had packages of like the eggplant dip. I forgot what it's called, but baba ganoush, right? But there's also like other things that we're exploring in our culture, and we're constantly getting things from, whether it's Middle Eastern or Spanish or European, but things that do focus a lot on plant-based foods. And I think we're very fortunate to have cookbooks like Ottolenghi, which really gives you a great Middle Eastern influence with a lot of tasty, zesty, rich, well-flavored dishes.
Right. I love all those tips, right? And these are tips that are, things that we can do and we can incorporate slowly, right? And try. And I love that it's addition of foods instead of like complete elimination, right? That it feels restrictive. So amazing. Where can the listeners find you, right? Like if they're wanting to work with you, or I guess my question should be, who do you work with? What's your niche? And then if the listeners want to reach out to you or learn more about you and your cookbooks and everything, where they can find you?
Basically, so my niche is gut health and GERD. They can find me at NutriSavvyHealth.com. So NutriSavvy health, HEALTH, NutriSavvyHealth.com. I know it's a big, big, long word, but they can find me there or on Instagram, Lauren O'Connor.
Awesome. And I'll make sure to add all that information in the show notes. So if you are driving or busy, don't worry. Just go to the show notes and all the information is going to be there in the links. Lauren, any final thoughts? Anything else that you would like to share or that you would like the listeners to know?
Oh my gosh. Just say, listen to Leonila. Listen to Leo. She's a great podcast host. I mean, she really makes learning about certain topics, very, very interesting and very conversational. And I can't think of anything else that I like to say. I don't know that I fully explained what lactose intolerance is, but if you want me to explain it, I can pop it in really quickly right now in a nutshell.
Yes, please. I think that is wonderful and it's going to be useful.
So lactose intolerance is basically when a person doesn't have enough of the enzyme called lactase. And this is what is necessary to break down the complex milk sugar called lactose. It breaks down the lactose in milk. And so when we don't have this enzyme to fully break it down, that lactose makes it down to the colon where it ferments, producing gases, and ultimately causing discomfort, pain, gas, bloating, sometimes diarrhea. So if I mention this, delete it. But if I didn't, keep it.
Yeah. No, I don't think we mentioned it. So this is great.
It makes sense. Yeah, that way people can understand that that's why some lactose-free products might add the enzyme lactase to digest the lactose more fully. And that's why there are lactose-free products because of that issue. Right? But it is not a milk allergy. It's just that inability to fully digest the lactose.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up. I think it's also important since you then mentioned, right, that lactose intolerance versus a milk allergy or lactose allergy. So for the listeners, right, what is the main difference between a lactose allergy or a milk allergy versus a lactose intolerance?
Well, lactose is it's an intolerance. So it's not the allergy. It's just that we can't break it down. So when you consider what the difference between an allergy, which could be very life-threatening or not, it's not that you have that allergic reaction. It's just that because it's not broken down fully, it's causing gas and distension, which can be causal for pain and some, obvious symptoms, which are whether they're mild or severe. So it's just the fact that it's not broken down. So the great thing about the lactose intolerance is that we have things widely available. You can get that lactase enzyme, supplement. You can get that included in a certain product that breaks down that complex sugar, the lactose. Or you can choose food items that are much, much lower in lactose or, vegan, non-dairy products.
Yeah. Thank you so much for talking a little bit about that as well. Okay, Lauren, thank you so much again for your time and for all your insights and all your tips. I really appreciate your time. Again, I'll put all the information where listeners can find you in the show notes. Again, thank you again for everything.
Thank you so much for having me. This was such a delightful conversation. You're so warm. It's such a pleasure to speak with you. So thank you.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for your time. Stay tuned for more episodes. Stay safe and stay healthy. I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye for now. This podcast, the links and resources provided are for the purpose to educate only and are not a replacement for medical advice or nutrition therapy. I suggest you seek out the help of a trained professional to help you with your specific situation and needs.